So for the past 7 years, I've been actively trying to improve my own learning capabilities. And I think something that you're going to agree with me, whether you're a student, you're an entrepreneur, or someone who is already working in your own career, the ability to learn efficiently is just one of those skills that you cannot really do without. And if you agree with this proposition, then I believe at some point, one way or another, you have tried to improve your own learning abilities. Maybe proof is that you're actually watching this video. So I'm going to use my experience and I'm going to give you 3 reasons as to why you should develop something that I'm calling a learning system. And so if that is something that you think is very interesting to you, then just stick around. Hello everyone, my name is Simon, a fifth year medical student at the University of Zambia. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I use my experiences and share some of the things that I found helpful in my own journey in trying to learn more efficiently and try to be productive as much as possible. So before I give you the reasons as to why I think creating a learning system is one of the most important things that you can do in trying to improve your own learning abilities, maybe I may start by defining what a learning system is. A learning system is a group of strategies and techniques about learning which are put in place, each accomplishing a different aspect of the learning, which as a whole create this system that allows you to learn the things you are learning more efficiently. Now, with this definition set into place, I can go to my first reason as to why I think you should create a learning system. And the first reason is because it is the reasonable way to actually improve. Now, reason with me here. The thing about learning is not a straightforward process, and learning is not necessarily an event. There are a number of things that have to be done or things that have to happen in your brain to make sure that the things you are learning have actually been learned. And because of this fact about learning, improvement therefore must be improving in a systematic manner, because you must be able to identify which parts of your learning abilities are slowing you down. The example that I can give from this basic example that I can give is, let's say for example your techniques for your focused learning the first time you're learning something are actually okay, and yet it is your revision techniques that are actually lagging behind. You will consistently see that you don't have good results in terms of your learning, but you don't know exactly where you have to improve. And so you may get into this habit of just going on YouTube, learn a study hack because it has been promised that it is going to give you A pluses and everything, and you try it on and you discover that it doesn't work and then you discard it. But the truth of the matter is actually maybe that study hack can actually be a legit, but it is not necessarily the thing that you need to improve on now. Or that study hack has actually worked, but there are other parts of your learning system that needs to be improved if you're going to see proper results. Therefore, the act of actually trying to create a learning system puts you in a position where you can make your own self-diagnosis in terms of your ability to learn efficiently, and then you can work with this diagnosis and try to make the specific changes that are actually going to produce proper results. The second reason as to why I think you should create a learning system is that it is actually useful in the long term. Let me give you an example of myself. I am a medical student. The truth of the matter is, whether people agree or not, learning medicine as a student is not exactly the same as practicing as a medical doctor. The skills that you learn as a medical student help you build a foundation that you can actually start to practice when you get your license, but there is still a lot of learning that you have to do even as a medical doctor, even though you are not even upgrading or trying to specialize. So now, the learning system that you have as a medical student is there, first of all, to give you competency and to pass the exams. The reason why I'm emphasizing on passing the exams is because there is a lot of arbitrary information that you have to memorize in order for you to pass the exams. For example, in my knowledge of biochemistry, biochemistry is an important component of me that I have to understand as a medical student in order to be able to practice medicine in a good way. However, during the time that I'm a medical student, there are a lot of details that I have to understand, at least memorize. I have to know the specific enzymes and know all the pathways, the specific enzymes that are used for every specific pathway. Now, that knowledge may be important for me to get the general concept of everything that I'm going to use as a medical doctor. But when I'm actually practicing as a medical doctor, I may not need to remember at least on my fingertips every single enzyme and every single step that happens at every single time of the chemical reaction. And so, when I'm a medical student, I create a learning system that is able to cater for all my needs. So I'll be able to learn all the basics and the fundamental concepts that I have to learn about each topic, and part of the system also caters for all the arbitrary facts that I have to remember and memorize in order for me to pass my exams. That may not necessarily be the same case when I start to practice, because now I see that it is not necessarily important, at least for this specific type of the way, to start memorizing every single enzyme and memorizing every single pathway about everything. And so I may tweak my own learning system to make sure that I am focusing on more of the things that I actually need for the job. This is not to say that those details are not important, but they may not necessarily be important right now. Now, this example can be used in all the other fields. I believe every other course that people may be doing, there are a lot of arbitrary facts and details that are very important for you to support the basic foundations that you're laying, which may not be necessarily important for you to memorize at your fingertips when you start working, because those are things that you may possibly be able to just look up if you need to. And so, if you are already in the habit of creating a learning system, the moment you go to your job, you are able to tweak your learning system, because you're able to see that this part of the technique of my learning system is not necessarily important right now. And this one is the most important, because you understand how your learning works and you're able to make this system very much useful for the kind of learning that you need for that specific time. And so you see that it is actually useful in the long term. Unlike just learning study hacks without knowing which study hack is actually helping you with which component of your learning, and then you go with that same learning system to your work environment, which was very useful and very powerful in your days as a student, but now it is lagging behind because you're unable to keep up. The last reason as to why I think creating a learning system is something that you should do is that it actually motivates you to learn. Now, I believe you have heard of this saying that if I'm given 6 hours to cut a tree, I'll use 3 hours of that to sharpen my axe. Well, there is a very slight modification that I can add to that as regards to learning how to learn. So the thing about learning how to learn is a skill. When we talk about the axe and the sharpening, you get the axe, you sharpen it with a fellow iron, and then you go and cut the tree, which is made of wood. So these are two different activities which are happening. Only that the first one is helping you be more efficient in the second one. But when it comes to learning how to learn, the only way to learn how to learn is actually learn the technique and then apply it by learning. What I mean by this is, let's say, for example, I learn a technique like using concept maps or active recall. I think that should be a more common one. Active recall. The only way I'm going to use active recall is to actually implement it in my own studying. So I'm actually using the creation of the learning system to actually do my learning. Now, in the preamble of this video, I believe you heard me mention that I've been actually trying to improve my own learning capabilities for the past 7 years. I'm in my 5th year and I don't plan to stop. This is because by learning how to learn more efficiently, I'm practicing the skills that I'm learning, integrating the theory with the actual learning. So when I go and learn, okay, there is this technique that helps you to encode or rather to understand information better. I may spend 15 minutes of my time learning that, and then I go and spend 3 hours actually studying the courses that I have to study, implementing that, and trying to see if it actually produces results. So it creates this scenario of a two-edged sword where actually you are learning the things you actually have to learn for your course or anything that you are doing for your skill development, and actually improving the very skill of learning how to learn. So I think if you think about it like that, you may actually realize that this is actually a good deal and something that you may want to think about starting developing yourself. Now, at this point of the video, I believe you may be asking, so how really now do you create a learning system? I cannot fit all the step-by-step instructions that I think may be helpful in this video, and so I'm creating another video on that. So you should look out for that, and that should encourage you to actually subscribe and also turn on the notification bell. And depending on the time that you watch this specific video, if you watch it at a time where the video that I'm talking about would have already been posted, then the link would actually be in the description box. But for those who are watching it early on, just look out for that video because it may be coming anytime soon. Alright guys, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Remember to share this video with a couple of friends and see you next time.